New York, the Big Apple, and to performers, it's the city of big dreams. But for many of them, it's far too often the city of broken dreams. Yet, as Kenneth Bell reports, each year a few Saskatchewan people can't resist the challenge of making it in New York.
It's one of the cultural meccas, New York City, where the power brokers of show business reign. A place where people are crazy for theater, where turning a corner brings Lincoln Center and Carnegie Hall. It's the Big Apple. It's the city that never sleeps. It's where people come from anywhere to find fame, fortune, or simply themselves. And it's from anywhere that performers make the pilgrimage, including Saskatchewan.
I checked it out. I felt out the waters. I dug the city. It was tons of fun. And it seemed real, so I decided to take the plunge, and it was a great idea.
Dana Radford has been pounding the New York pavement for the last 4 years, one of several Saskatchewan performers who are bypassing Canada and heading straight for Manhattan.
I'd grown out of Regina. I really had. I felt like I was going around in circles probably for the last few years that I lived there.
Dana's entree into the New York lifestyle completes a cycle that began as a teenager. She's crammed a lot of living and singing into 31 years, and she's in New York because she has no plans to stop.
There's a different gig every night in New York. In Regina, you're lucky if you can play twice a month, I'm sure.
Days are spent planning her career. The nights, perfecting it.
I went to jams. That's what I did when I first got here. And next thing I knew, I was playing in their bands. There's no place like New York. There just isn't, you know?
Tonight, Dana has what's considered a good gig, one of the hottest clubs on New York's fabled Bleecker Street in Greenwich Village.
This is the scene that tests the mettle of any performer. Clubs like the Bitter End have spawned legendary performers from Bob Dylan to Bette Midler to Canada's Joni Mitchell, performers who have written the history of contemporary music. And Canadians are still coming, hoping that history will repeat itself for them. Christ has died.
Next morning in Uptown 20 blocks, it's a very different kind of experience. Martin Good, also from Regina, is pursuing a classical singing career.
It's impossible to have an international career if you aren't connected to New York in some way.
There is joy for
New York, you know, is definitely the best way for a person to challenge himself in every way.
In between challenges, Martin sings as a church cantor. It may not be the spotlight at the Met, but for classical singers, a church gig is a perfect way to make money.
Living in New York is extremely expensive. It's crowded, it smells, it's full of a lot of really crazy people. It's a little scary sometimes, but by and large, I look at New York very positively.
Much of his free time is spent keeping his voice in shape, ready for any opportunity. The rest of the time, Martin works at his day job, a price most performers have to pay.
There are just tens of thousands of performing artists in the city, and not all of them are actually doing what they want to do.
That's nice.
Dana's been luckier. As a working singer, she's much freer to further the process, updating her publicity shots.
I feel pretty!
Updating her look.
America.
Or updating her bank account with some very exclusive work.
Dreamline.
All you divas seem to want reverb on your vocals.
Dana sings as many jingles as she can. This Macy's ad is a coveted one, paying $2,000 for an hour's work.
You don't miss it.
Good job.
Excellent.
Then it's on the hustle again.
It was easy. It was simple. It was like cake.
But most New York experiences are far from easy. New York is a relentlessly in-your-face city that can be full of indignities. Even doing the laundry is a testimony to endurance.
There are days when I'm ready to pack my bags and leave. It's usually after a particularly stressful day, or I'll have, you know, one too many rats cross my path as I'm walking down the sidewalk.
That's nothing compared to the reality of the audition.
Jim Harwood.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice
Mark,
to meet
good.
you. You have a resume and a picture?
Yeah.
Terrific.
There's a lot riding on today's performance. Martin is singing for a manager, Jim Harwood.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
But it's not to be this time.
I ask myself if I'm aggressive enough for this business.
So how do you feel now that it's over?
Fine. Glad it's over.
Martin needs to really assess his potential. He needs to look at what his skills are and what he can sell and what sells in the marketplace.
On to another audition now?
Yeah, I'll have another one this afternoon, so never ends.
Meanwhile, Dana has been checking in with her agent, Harlan Ellis.
Let's talk about what's coming up.
Put me on jobs. I want to work.
Probably got a dozen gigs this weekend. I can't put you on all of them, Dana.
Yeah, I know.
It's one of those New York success stories, where people just, they say, okay, I'm coming to New York from wherever, and, going after it. And, she has that ability to be able to do that.
Still, it's not all fun and games.
New York is a place where performers come to invent and reinvent themselves. The opportunities and excitement can be intoxicating. But for Canadian performers, there are also enormous risks.
You're working illegally. So if you get caught, then you're kicked out of the country, and that may blow your chances down the road.
Graham Bell studied acting in New York for 3 years. Legal and personal pressures forced him to come home. Now working construction in Regina, he knows how tough it is to get that prized green card.
I think it's close to a lottery. I sacrificed everything, relationships, money, security.
There have been a lot of things that I've had to say no to.
Martin doesn't have a green card. He has a work permit, but it limits him to his desk job.
It becomes very, very complicated legally, very complicated, and tax-wise.
You're risking a lot. I honestly wouldn't suggest people to come to America if they didn't have proper paperwork, because it's not that easy.
Dana is now married to an American and can work legally. But in fact, most Canadian performers will never get that status. That's why out of 2,000 clients, Harlan Ellis only represents 2 Canadians. What are you willing to do for a Canadian?
It is a dilemma. I mean, many times they do turn around. Of course, a lot of doors will close.
The door is always open at nightclubs like the Duplex, New York's oldest cabaret. But they pose other problems. Performers pay to play. Manager, Amelia David.
They're producing their own show. We're only a host house, and that's the same thing at all the cabarets in the city. You need to have a following.
Tonight's act is a nerve-wracking one for yet another former Reginan, Debbie Lewis.
My goal is, of course, to, make records. But if you really want to excel, it's very hard to stay in Regina.
But unlike in Regina, Debbie's had to pay for rehearsals, her accompanist, and her publicity. She's even had to supply her own audience. Friends who paid more than $20 each to hear Debbie sing for less than an hour. And Debbie receives a fraction of that.
This just gives you a place to do it where, you can look presentable.
It isn't hard for cabarets to exploit young performers desperate for places to be seen.
Because there's so much competition.
Steve Stringfellow.
Competition. It's an undeniable and recurring issue. Nothing says it better than this typical New York cattle call.
To get us down from 70 to 6.
Hoping someone will single them out, people can waste thousands of dollars and precious years going to audition after audition, and they may wind up with nothing but a trunk full of old headshots.
Only a fraction of 1% really make it to the big time.
That's the saddest part of the business.
Certain people don't make it when they come to New York, and it's really easy to just turn around and do that 360 and go back home.
I was just tired. You just burn out every day doing the same thing, trying to get the job, and I was just sick of it.
So why do some Canadians gamble with their lives in this toughest of cities? There's a cultural industry in Canada, but it was American recognition that gave these performers worldwide success.
Making it to the big time is everybody's dream in the entertainment industry.
And everything about New York is big time, especially its show business traditions. It's a city where people will line up to hear jazz, a city where new ideas are embraced, a city where life in the arts is a respected pursuit.
It's really been a place where I feel like I fit in, and I really don't have to worry about anybody else looking at me funny because I am an opera singer or whatever.
It's my everything. I don't really have anything else. I mean, it's my happiness, it's my money, it's my emotional state.
Still, show business can be full of uncertainties. But while Dana and Martin continue paying their dues, one thing is certain. They won't be returning to Regina.
I don't know what I'd be doing. I'd probably be fat and unhappy.
I don't think after living here, I would be able to live in a very small city.
And on it goes. Regina actor Jason Uzicepi has just been accepted at New York's American Academy of the Dramatic Arts and has his sights set firmly on U.S. success.
But it's opening up more in the United States because they're looking for a full range of actors. Anybody can make it in the United States.
For aspiring performers, New York is much more than a city. It's an irresistible, magical destination where the streets echo with the footsteps of the greats and where the uninitiated hope that by following in those footsteps, maybe some of the magic will rub off. Kenneth Bell, CBC News, New York.
Now, that woman has a lot of spunk. She has what it takes. But, you know, I give him a lot of credit for going out there and going for the big time, because that's what it's all about.
Well, we can only imagine how tough it is. But they're following their dreams, and wouldn't it be nice if one or two or three of them made it?
You bet.
Heard about
Wish them luck.
Later on the CBC News Hour, the long run, clocking 100 clicks.
And when we return, Farmers in Clay, it's on Prairie Portraits.